It's your boy, BD. I'm waiting for a bunch of packing supplies to come in, so I'm just gonna make this video. Today, I'm gonna be talking about mismatched libidos, and what brought this up was Perv made a video about someone's comments or post on r/getting bigger, saying that no matter what he does, he cannot get his wife to find him attractive or girlfriend to find him attractive. I'm definitely paraphrasing, but essentially Perv went off, not like went off in a bad way, but elaborated about how there's some biological factors between men and women, and that makes sex more costly, if we're speaking like in a biological sense, for a woman due to like pregnancy and all that jazz of child rearing. So they're going to be more reserved when it comes to sex. Additionally, he talked about how women, and particularly his ex-wife, he put this together when he was about 30, that if he keeps her like housework down, she is much more open to sex. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that, like mentally speaking, because I've noticed the same thing with my wife. However, I'm still a slob. We just make it work. For context, this is going to be largely from a monogamous point of view. I have been with the same woman since I was 18. So 8 years. We've been married for 2, dating for 6. So I'm a loyal guy. Some of you guys just know you're just going to be largely monogamous. I've never really fantasized about sleeping with a lot of women, just one woman for most of my life. Okay, that's just how I've been. But that being said, you more promiscuous fellows that want to sleep around, a lot of the same rules apply. It's just going to be less specific. On top of that, women are not a monolith. So I'm going to be speaking in general terms about women, but there's going to be just some very promiscuous and sexual women, and that's perfectly fine. But in general, women have a environmental pressure, and because of that environmental pressure, they have some like evolutionary psychology that makes them less promiscuous and less open to sex than, say, us men. So first, us men literally produce millions of sperm daily. Women produce 300,000 eggs one time in their life. And kind of burp. So their like sexual resource, the number one sexual resource, is already finite. And that you can like literally look at all of life. Most species, females tend to be less open for sex than male. Like, unless we're talking like fish, then it's all bets are off. But mammals in general are going to have females that are less promiscuous unless they're in heat. Then that's when they're actually going to be open for business, so to say. So first, that's just one part of it. Second, since we do not lay eggs as a species, at least I hope most of you don't, we, females in particular, have an 8-month pregnancy, 8 to 9 month pregnancy, where it becomes more and more costly to be pregnant. So you need more food as you progress, but at the same time, it's harder to get that food because you have, a belly, making it harder to find this food. So it is, in general, survival speaking, very costly to have children as a caveman, so to speak. That's why there's a lot of environmental pressures for men to stick around in the picture and help raise the child and take care of the woman that he mated with to, help raise the young. Interestingly enough, humpback whales are super promiscuous and basically have 2 ideas. So first, us humans, since we're largely monogamous still, the men take care of their own kind. But with very promiscuous species like humpback whales, bonobo chimp, since everyone's hooking up with everyone, no one knows who the father is, therefore, for the good of the species, they all take care and raise the young. So it's really interesting. Speaking of humans, if we're just looking at this in a vacuum, it does not make any sense for a woman to have sex unless they are sure that they will be able to keep up with the pregnancy if it does so happen. Granted, we live in modern times, birth control is a thing, condoms are a thing. Sex is a lot more for pleasure than it is reproduction. But now that we know that since women need some kind of safety to feel comfortable having sex, we need to figure out how to make a safe environment for women. So first and foremost, you have to cut out stressors. And there's a whole bunch of stressors you probably don't think about. First, environmental stressors, right? So if you live in a dirty house, that background stress is of all the stuff you have to do before you even get busy is going to be on the back of her mind, making it harder for her to get into the state of arousal, for example. Work stress. Most women work these days, and that's fine. If they have a lot of stress at work, it might take a while for them it might take a while for them to relax and get in the mood. Meanwhile, us men would kind of prefer to take the edge off with sex. They need the edge off first before they can have sex. Then there is relationship stress. So if, let's say, you are stressed out, since women are much more emotionally intelligent than us men by almost design, so since women are 15% smaller than men on average, it makes much more sense for them to be able to read someone and know how safe they are around them. So if you're chronically stressed out, they'll start picking up on the stress signals, making it harder for them to be aroused around you. So we have 3 different kinds of stress. 2 of them you can largely control. And then, let me check my notes. Effort. Remember how I said that since we're a largely monogamous species, if the man puts an effort in child rearing, there's much higher rates of thriving for the child if we're talking about it before we became a civilized species. So, in practice, for sex, if you want to prove your merit, and this is a test as old as time, that if you do, say, housework and show you're putting in the effort, they're more likely to reciprocate. Now, I know this sounds like the old adage, oh, my wife just uses sex to get me to do chores, and honestly, kinda, but it's not like they're holding sex out on a, thread for you to grab and then they hook you in to do the yard work. What it really is a sign of appreciation. And then on top of that, it lowers their stress levels and everything along with that. So if you don't do any work in the apartment or the house or the yard, it's going to make it harder for you long term. So that's why when I see men that say, oh, I never do the dishes, you're a dumbass. It's so easy, first of all, to load the dishwasher in most cases. Second of all, it just opens them up more to the idea of having sex. So, another point on effort is that since women are not constantly thinking about sex, they will need a bit of a push in the right direction. Not saying, suck my dick, bitch, but just come up, start massaging them, for example, or hugging, cuddling, whatever. And that's what's going to get them this is nice, maybe this will go to something else, because it changes their mindset, and it will change your mindset too. I really don't like how I'm saying they, as they're different. They're not different, they just it's so tough to explain. I don't like talking about women in general because that's out of context. I have a lot of women friends, okay? So, I don't like putting them all under the same umbrella because it just kind of minimizes them. But sex is very complicated, therefore making generalizations make it a little easier for young men to understand, right? So, back to effort. So, effort around the house. or cave, if we're talking about this caveman wise, and then effort showing affection for your partner is going to go a very long way. Finally, communication, right? So, and this is like when you start getting in the groove and having more frequent sex. Communication is what's going to keep that sex good. And this is where it gets personal for me. So, I've been with my wife for 8 years sexually, 2 of which, maritally. But we've obviously had our ups and downs with sex. And I don't know how much she's going to like me talking about her sex life in public like this, but essentially, points of high stress for both of us, the sex sucked. Not sucked, just decent sex. When we both finally got to a point where we were less stressed, sex got much better. So, controlling your stress is going to be key to sex. And just talking about what's stressing you guys out or what you don't like about sex and then working on it together is just going to make sex so much better. So, just to give a recent example, y'all know I've been working 80 hours a week between my full-time job before I quit it and this business that I've been running. That cumulative stress started taking attacks on our relationship because I stopped seeing sex as something between me and my wife and something that we just had to do for the sake of sex. Very weird because of, my business. But because of that, I didn't take the time that we needed to have good sex. So that'd be, relaxing, talking, getting intimate beforehand, and then actually going on to the main course, if you will. So this went on for about, let's say, 3 months. And then it really came to a head after we went on vacation where the sex for I just noticed she was not reciprocating as well. And then once we talked about it, granted there were some difficult conversations, and you will have them when you're with someone for 8 years, we worked it out, as adults do, and the sex just kept getting better and better. Also, we are being more, I wouldn't say reciprocating, but we're doing more things, or going to each other's fantasies more. So, my wife would literally have dreams about being on top, but she had the idea that when the first time that she was on top, back like when we were 19, 20, me putting my hands on her hips so she doesn't, pop off of me and potentially hurt me, was me saying, no, I don't like that. But really, I was just trying to help her. So, because we never talked about it when we were 20, that sexual trauma, if you will, that bad experience with sex stayed with us for 3 to 4 years after that. And then it finally came to a head this year. And now we're having much better sex because I'm letting her do what she wants. Okay, and it was not even that I was not letting her do what she wants. It was just a miscommunication or lack of communication that led to this state for us, right? So what I'm getting at is between limiting stress around the house for her, limiting your stress, and then creating a safe environment is going to go a long way for your wife's libido. Then, if you want to continuously have good sex, you're going to need to put the work in your relationship. So you can't let the floor get dusty. So, relationships are work. You are going to need to put in the effort to keep it clean, essentially. And, yeah, sometimes it's taxing, especially when you have so much else going on. But you both need to put in effort. That's actually the important thing. And that's what I talked about, again, with my wife, too, is that sometimes I felt like she wasn't putting in as much effort, but really it's just she felt the need to be so submissive around me that it didn't come off as intimate to me sometimes, especially when I was in these high-stress states. She couldn't get a real good read of me. I couldn't get a good read of her, and then our sex life suffered. And another important caveat, and this was a huge boon too, Again, she's probably not going to be happy with me talking about it on camera, but she had some persistent health issues. So she has genetic hypothyroidism. And for 5 years, no doctors took her seriously because, she was a young adult. So basically, when she went to school, it's like, oh, you're sore and tired all the time, quit drinking. But she doesn't drink anything. And then when she started working, she went to another doctor. He's like, oh, it's because you started working. Welcome to the real world. And I wanted to strangle him for using that term. That's one of my trigger phrases, welcome to the real world. Talk about it in another video. But then I actually was like, okay, let's do this my way. I paid for some blood tests to get her thyroid checked and her cortisol checked. And lo and behold, I was right. She had minor Hashimoto's disease. And then, because she was under so much chronic stress, metabolically speaking, she had extremely elevated cortisol. I guess extreme's relative, but we're saying 4 to 5 times the average amount of cortisol for the normal person. Not related to Cushing's disease, which is like runaway cortisol production, but this was like just elevated cortisol. So first, we finally got to an endocrinologist. She went on thyroid replacement hormone. And then as she stopped feeling as achy all the time, her libido increased. Shocking, right? Then we finally got her up to the dose that she was supposed to be at, because you want to kind of work your way up to the dose you need to be at with thyroid stuff and any long-term replacement hormone. And in this past month, that's where she finally feels like good again. And then on top of that, though they weren't taking the cortisol stuff too seriously, it's a complicated thing. So since she didn't have markers for Cushing disease, it's hard to treat. So I just took the liberty 1 month, like, we're just going to try this supplement, see what happens. It was just labeled for cortisol reduction. And since she's been taking it for 2 weeks, drastic increase in her energy and mood too, because the stress hormone is no longer being produced, or at least it's being regulated better. So between her health improving, our communication getting better, me getting my head out of my ass, our sex has never been better. And sex has been more frequent. Beforehand, it was maybe once or twice a week. Now we've literally been doing it every other day, which is very often for most women. Granted, there is some women that will do it twice a day. The way we are intimate, there's no way either of us would be able to do it twice a day. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. When it comes down to it, there are things you can do to improve your sex life, and a lot of it is just getting out of the way, taking some of the load off of her, being available for her, and just not expecting it right away. I can't tell you how many times when I was younger where I'd be like, wow, I look great, I can't believe she's not into this. And it just turns out that all I needed to do was cuddle with her on the couch for 15 minutes to get her in the mood, okay? Or, give her a little massage. Because as much as we're together, literally we sleep in the same bed, we see each other every morning, we see each other every evening, right, after work, there are still things I need to learn about her. And it doesn't matter how long you've been living with someone, you will still learn something new about them, because they're learning new stuff about themselves the entire time. So if you're in a long-term relationship, it's about effort. It's about just knowing your person and not being afraid to ask questions, even the tough ones. Sorry, I had a carbonated drink. And for you hookup guys, how you can apply this is that you don't bring them back to a dirty ass apartment, okay? You take your time and you're patient. You don't just rush them into it, and you communicate. You're meeting up with a stranger. You have no idea what they're going to really like, right? So ask them how they want to go about it. There's no point in black box testing this. So in computer science, there's this thing called black box testing. You put data in, data comes out. You don't know what's going on in the middle with all the code and stuff. You know how you get the answer? You ask the computer what's going on with the code, and you stop where you're at, read whatever's going on, and then you can change the code to get a better result or the right result, or you can just keep on going, randomly testing, hoping for the best, right? Obviously, it makes more sense to check with the person what they want done to their body, right? Anyway, I'm starting to ramble. This video became 20 minutes. There's going to be a few cuts. If you like this kind of content, let me know. I like talking about this stuff. I feel like a lot of men are being led the wrong way about what women want. You can listen to people that don't know anything about women. Not saying I know a lot, but just the fact that my best friend is a woman, my wife, and I have many women friends. I feel like I'm better off talking about it than the talking heads that you hear talk about women now. So, yeah, let me know. I will see you in the next one.